Wow, we have 103 attendees.
Yeah. I know why too. We all know why.
Right.
I wish
Okay,
we'd have
thanks.
that in a regular attendance.
That would be nice.
Wouldn't it?
Anyway, yes. So thank you. Thank you all. I'd like to reconvene the open session of the Coventry School Committee. I have 6:11. And could we have a moment of silence as we consider the work before us this evening, please? Thank you. And I believe if you could do the honor, Mr. Florio, of reading the mission statement for Coventry Public Schools.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The mission of Coventry Public Schools is to inspire, support, and challenge all students in an inclusive community to be critical thinkers, effective communicators, reflective learners, responsible individuals, and global citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Florio. And for the public's benefit, the school committee met in executive session for about 10 minutes previous to this reconvening of our open session. We considered two items, the executive session minutes of 2/10/22 and our homeschooling requests. Both of those issues were approved unanimously, 4-0. So motions were both passed. That being said, is there a vote to seal the executive session minutes?
Madam Chair, I vote that the records of the executive session be kept closed pursuant to sections 42-46-4 and 42-46-5.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Colonian. And could we just have a hand vote if you agree with that? I assume there were no questions. Thank you. That motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the approval of minutes on February 10th. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 10, 2022 as presented/amended.
I second the motion.
Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor, you can just raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the public agenda. For the citizens gathered, the rest of the agenda items on our agenda are open for public discussion. After the school committee has the presentation and discusses if there is a vote, before we will take a motion, and before we call for the vote, it'll be brought out to the public so the public can comment, and then we will proceed with the vote. That being said, I would like to move the agenda item number 7 first in front of number 6, because I think there's a lot of people on the call that probably would appreciate that rather than us waiting. So if we could have that discussion, the facial coverings, masks in Coventry Public Schools facilities effective March 4th. So it's our discussion. So Mr. Levis, would you like to start this, please?
I put together what I hope is a quick slide presentation. So let me share my screen to kind of help me guide me through this here. Yeah. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think we are all aware that last week Governor McKee removed the mask mandate for the public, and then he effective March 4th for public schools, and he's left that up to the districts. Despite that, there's no matter there still has to be masks need to be worn on transportation. That's a federal requirement, which means school buses, any buses that we utilize, whether it's sporting events. So that hasn't been changed. I don't know if that will be changed. I know there was some conversation with the CDC around that. We also must respect policies of private venues and districts. We're scheduled to have our graduation at the Ryan Center And right as of now, they have requirements that we're going to have to follow. We may have field trips going to different venues, and we're going to have to respect. It could be athletic events where another district requires masking. So that's just something to be aware of. Another component is the Department of Health. You know, on our website, there's a thing called the playbook. It really tells us how do we deal with all these different scenarios. Close contacts, quarantine, isolation, with the ability for districts to make masking optional, right? The Department of Health needs to update the playbook. They were supposed to have a meeting with districts tomorrow, but they've moved that back to the beginning of when we come back from vacation, that first week. We also have a meeting set up with our nurses the first week we come back from vacation to look at that playbook and say, okay, what does that mean from Coventry? Now that will be before the 4th. So we're going to meet. We already have a meeting set up. There was just some examples there. So our current policies and directives is what we have used as a district. You know, many districts, I know there are districts that committees are voting on this. I think our school committee, in our policy subcommittee that Mr. Pearson sits on and Dr. Dixon, we worked with our nurses and we came up with policies that would support the administration working with our medical experts to make decisions based on guidance from the Department of Health or CDC. So tonight, we're not going to have to take a vote with the school committee. We can put different practices in place. And these are the policies that are on our website. Policy EBCFA, it's about student entry into a school facility during a public health crisis. The reason we did public health crisis is right now we're dealing with COVID, but we could be dealing with something else. So this policy could apply, and I think that was smart on the policy subcommittee. So we have the same for also employee and visitor entry. We had modified our dress code policy to include facial coverings. So an administrative directive is something that the superintendent issues. And so I had issued, I think it was in September 7th of 2021, we've revised this directive, which talks about facial coverings and who needs to wear them and what a facial covering is. And then we have the universal mask and attestation. It's a policy which I just referred to, EBCFA and EBCFB, administrative directive. And again, that supports what people need to do, individual students, employees, visitors coming into a school department. It talked about masking, it talked about attestation. If parents remember, we used to do it daily. Then what we did this year, at one point, we said, we just want you to do it once. And then kind of like the honor system, you'll check your children's temperature and make sure they don't come in. So we have the ability with our current policies to change our masking requirement right now. There's some data. I do want to say I received 17 emails, 4 emails from individuals that think we should continue with the masking. The other emails were for individuals who felt that, you know, it should be their choice. I know other people might have received emails. I know I had some that at least I had shared with the committee. So this is some significant data, and I think why we're having this conversation tonight, and we'll make some recommendations at the end. So if you look at just the week ending January 7th, and I want to thank our school nurse teachers for keeping all this data. So was that 5-6 weeks ago? We had 55 staff positive and 258 students. So fast forward to last Friday, I think it was last Friday, we had 4 staff test positive and 23 students, right? So in my basic math, I think that's over a 90% decrease in terms of positivity rate since the beginning of early January. These are some statistics I'm going to throw out. I had a conversation with the Department of Health over the weekend, and one of the nurses that works there, her name's Pat Marshall, was able to get me this information so that as of February 13th, 72% of our high school students are partially vaccinated. That means they've had 1 vaccination. 69% have completed the primary vaccination, which means they've had the series, or if it's Johnson & Johnson, the 1. The middle school, you can see it's 60%. partially 56%, Western Coventry 32%, 27% complete the primary series. Washington Oak is 52%, partially vaccinated, 47% completed the primary vaccination. Hopkins Hill, 41%, 34% completed primary vaccination. Tyoke, 41%, 34% have completed, and in Black Rock, 40%, and 33% have completed the primary vaccine. This is for students, right? And I should say that it's the Pfizer, because we weren't offering the other vaccinations to individuals, students. We were offering the Pfizer. It was the first one that was approved. So for our community, we have a population that's partially vaccinated. This was from February 11th, data of 79.2%. And those that have completed primary vaccination, which could be, one vaccination of the Johnson & Johnson and 2 of the Moderna or Pfizer is 65%. So, I know they talk about the state around 80%. We're not much below, the state. I know there's a lot of concern in some of the urban areas. So this is based on our policy and consultation with our nurses, the Department of Health. I believe the CDC guidance is also going to be changing over the next, whether it's this week or next week. What I plan on doing, and again, this isn't just the superintendent making this decision. I actually spoke to every single one of our nurses individually, that we believe that and how I could word this, you can word this different ways, but I felt this is the most appropriate, saying that masking will be optional in school facilities effective March 7th. That gives us, that's a week when we come back. It's from vacation. It puts us, I think 7-8 days out of vacation. There's still concern about vacations and people getting positive, but with our positive rates as low as they are, we felt comfortable going on March 7th. We'll update and distribute district document in practice, which means the administrative directives. I'll have to revise those. I have some time to do that. I'll revise them probably next week. We'll distribute them. We'll make sure we post them where people enter the buildings. I think this is a crucial part, is that those who want to continue wearing masks will be supported. There were some I was speaking to a couple of the nurses, and they were talking up to some of our staff who might be concerned because some of the children aren't vaccinated in the classroom. And so we're still going to encourage and support individuals who want to wear masks. We can provide those materials. And there may be situations where people still have to wear masks, because currently right now, I don't know, I had gotten COVID last week, and for 5 days after you get COVID, no matter where you are, you're supposed to wear a mask. And we don't know if that's going to continue, because right now, after the 5-day isolation period, you're still supposed to be wearing masks. So, we still have, there's a lot that has to be determined with the playbook. We will need to continue to wear masks on transportation unless the federal government changes those regulations. We're also going to closely monitor positivity rates in the district. This is not, I'm not into, a political debate or the efficacy of masking. I think we follow the guidance, but the bottom line is that, God forbid that something transpires and we see an incredible spike, we have the ability to do whatever we need to do. And again, I just want to be completely transparent. That's not the intent. I think, many of us, I can only speak for myself, and as much as I feel the importance of wearing an effective mask, I'm tired of it also. I'm tired. I want to see kids' faces. I want to see people's faces. And that's just my honest personal opinion, not as the superintendent, but as Craig Levis. We will revisit testing in schools. We had intended to do testing. We sent out consent forms. I know it took us a while. The challenge is we have less than 5% of our student population in families consented to it. So there's a point where it's not really effective. It may benefit that individual, but in terms of us trying to get ahead of some type of outbreak in the schools, just testing 5% isn't going to really be effective. But we'll revisit that. I've had some parents ask me, if we can do that. Most people should have received, or you'll be receiving test kits. We've received a few test kits from Rhode Island Emergency Management. And we'll be handing those out. We'd like people to utilize them. I can't force the issue, but it would be nice for you if you could, including staff. We've given them staff, our bus drivers, bus monitors, food service, anybody that's connected to our schools. It would be nice to test prior to coming back, but again, that's voluntary. We can't make that happen, but we will be revisiting the testing. And then we're going to continue with our disinfecting protocols, right? We're not going to get, lax. That's why, we've continued to keep the number of custodians we put in place, because we recognize that there's no way we can go backwards. We need to make sure that we're sanitizing our buildings. As we all know, they're old and much more challenging for upkeep than if we had newer structures. And we're going to continue with all of our disinfecting protocols. So I think so that's where we stand. Again, we have documents to create. To have to go back and take a look at our administrative directives and modify those. We're following the policy that was put in place by the school committee that gives us the ability to do this. Again, it's based on Governor McKee removing the mandate. Also, the Department of Health is in support of this. We've met with them. I've met with the Department of Health individuals, met with the nurse, spoke to our nurses. We will be doing this in preparation for our return from the weekend of March 4th on March 7th. Again, the playbook is going to be crucial, so we can give people all the additional information that we're required to do in terms of any of the situations, monitoring, quarantine, isolation, close contacts, all of that, especially if people aren't masked. We've never been, out, the only time we've asked or required about vaccination is so that it can keep students in school longer, right? So, again, we'll still continue to promote vaccination. Somebody said to me, pushing it hard. I think, it's my responsibility, working with our EMA, the police, the fire, trying to provide opportunities to those individuals in our community that want to get vaccinated, but by no means is it indicating to others, or any guilt about getting vaccinated. I think we've done a nice job as a district handling that. And again, the last thing I'll say is we want to make sure that we support individuals, families that choose for their children to wear masks, our administrators. I know that, as much as I'd like to get rid of mine, I know that I don't want to deal with this again. One and done, I hope. And, I'll be wearing a mask, but that's my choice, right? So anyways, that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Levis, for that presentation. So we'll start with questions from the school committee and then put it out to the public. Mr. Pearson, I believe, if you have any questions or comments, we'd appreciate them.
Just one request, because I don't have it, and I'm not sure if I've ever seen it directly. Could you forward over the federal requirement about wearing masks on transportation, school buses? Just would like to have that to review and reference when necessary. Other than that, I'm glad to hear we're moving toward away from the mandate and make masking a choice of the individual. So that's encouraging to hear that we can support that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Mrs. Colonian?
I too am glad that we're moving towards the choice. I've always been a big proponent of choice, and this is I think this is great. We're at a point now where it's been 2 years, and I think we've done everything we could possibly do. And now it's up to the individual. So I firmly believe. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Mrs. Colonian. Mr. Florio.
Craig, thank you very much. I agree. Parents can have a choice whether they want to mask their children or whether they don't. And to me, that makes that's logical, has common sense to it, and is effective. So thank you for making that decision, and I'm with you on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Florio. My only comment is to thank the folks involved that helped make this decision, our school nurses, our leadership team. It was, I'm sure it's always a difficult position when safety is part of our concern, obviously. And I agree. I think we've reached a point in the pandemic where we're inching slowly but surely to a new normal, which may be that it's endemic in the population. But I think between natural immunity for a lot of folks right now and vaccination rates, I think the option for parents is a good one. And I suspect the federal government might change the school bus as well, because it's kind of a little contrary when you think, a parent puts a child on a bus with a mask on, and then when the child goes to school, and if their parent says you can take your mask off in school, trying to keep track of those masks and everything. So hopefully that will be changed in the near future as well, so that it will be an option. Again, parents will have that option one way or the other. And I know for any parents out there that with children that, have special needs, I know that will all be taken care of. Immunocompromised students, faculty, staff will all be protected in some way, shape, or form. So I'm really glad that we've come this far. It's been a long haul, to say the least. So I thank everybody for the help on this, and we look forward to the directive that comes out of the office and the playbook that parents can read and look at, and be more familiar with what some of the restrictions may or may not be in the actual schools. So thank you for that. It looks like we have 3 hands up, Mr. Murphy. Would you like to bring those folks in to comment?
Missy, you're up first. If you could just state your name and address for the record and unmute your microphone.
I would just like to say thank you so much for ending the mask mandate for our children. I'm beyond grateful. Thank you very much. I can't wait to send my kid back to school after vacation with no mask. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Who's next, Mr. Murphy?
Okay, Mandy, you're next. If you could unmute your microphone and state your name and address for the record.
All right, Mr. Paul.
Andy, you're muted. Oh, actually, it looks like she just put her hand down.
I think so, yeah.
Right. Charlie, you're next. Again, if you could say your name and address for the record and unmute your microphone. Charlie, you're still muted. Okay, maybe we can come back to Charlie.
Okay.
Hillary, you're next. Again, your name and address for the record and unmute your microphone.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So my name is Hillary Connors. My address is 2 Woodmiss Circle. And I just would like to say that I think I take a different perspective, and it's a little disappointing to hear some of this from all of you tonight. In one regard, I think that choice makes good sense for the older students. You know, the data shows from what you presented tonight and also from other standards, Mayo Clinic, American Academy of Pediatrics, that the older students, you know, middle school and up, have higher vaccination rates. And so therefore, and are also older and can socially distance more, you know, wash hands more, do things like that, that will protect them and help mitigate risk. However, our elementary school kids, including my own, are going to school daily. You know, kindergartners, it's impossible to stay socially distanced. They don't keep their mask on perfectly all day, but they do have that as a mitigating measure when their vaccination records are less than 35% in some of the schools. So I am concerned at the elementary level. My hope would have been tonight that we keep a mask mandate for students in the elementary levels where the vaccination rates are lower, and at least until after the April vacation. I could see it in May, you know, numbers go down. We're not coming back from vacations where we tend to see spikes in schools. That being said, it sounds like you all have your decision made. I understand that these are difficult decisions to make and process out. I appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into it, it sounds like, but I have a hard time reconciling the extremely low vaccination rates in the elementary schools and the fact that we're not going to be requiring that at that age group. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. Okay. Who's next, Mr. Murphy?
Okay. Chris, you're up next. State your name and address for the record, unmute your microphone.
Schuler, 12 Jack Pine Road, Coventry. I'm an immigrant from South America, a naturalized U.S. citizen, and I'm a parent of two beautiful children, 4 and 6 years old, Washington Oak. I'm an independent that has no allegiance to any political party. Let me begin by saying I believe in public education and the tireless efforts of our teachers. However, the cowardice shown by this school district and school committee, the unending compliance and silence against the abuse by the state has been deafening. Why haven't we heard any of you speak out against masking publicly in the past 700 days? Your silence is disgraceful. Medical intervention mandates have no place in our schools ever again. My kids have been forever harmed by this district's discriminatory policies, of which they may never fully recover socially, emotionally, or mentally. They are at little to no risk of spreading COVID, although daily they are treated as if they have a communicable disease. My kids have never seen their teacher's face. Masks should be taken off tomorrow, not March 7th. We all know that masking is now political. The current policies in place allow you, Mr. Levis, the ability to abuse our kids again when the next flu comes. If anyone thinks a wet and germ-filled mask being worn 6 hours a day is healthy to our kids or our teachers, please come back to reality. My question is this: what's next? Will you identify students by their religion? Perhaps confuse them with regressive gender ideologies? Or will you segregate them mentally and physically by their race through the divisive teaching of critical race theory? Masking is only the tip of the iceberg to your indifference to our children's well-being, and I call upon all parents to keep a close eye on the leadership of this school district, especially when the next state mandate comes down and this district falls in lockstep and barrel with no regard to our children. I'm glad that you, Mr. Levis, have proposed to go mask optional for now. Thank you. But your policies need to be revised. The school committee needs to act to take this unilateral power away from the superintendent and back into the hands of the citizens of Coventry. It's high time for parents to remind you that it is our kids we trust into your care. Focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic. Leave the political ideologies and character building to the professionals, us, parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schuler. Mr. Murphy, our next citizen.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay,
It's okay.
next, if you could State your name and address for the record, unmute your microphone.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Renee Smith, 3 Wildflower Drive. First off, I think that you guys did a really great job during this very difficult time. And, you know, I know the importance of masks. My husband's a nurse, so I know the important use of masks. But actually, my question really is on the special needs side. So for those that you mentioned, Kathy, I know that you mentioned, you know, for those people that are the students that are special needs and immunocompromised, is there going to be some extension of the virtual policy for any of those students that now that masks are optional, that that they could go virtual? Just want to make sure that it's still an option, because really the point of wearing a mask is not really so much to protect yourself, but to protect others. So if other people around you are not really wearing masks, it's not really as effective.
I'm going to let Mr. Levis answer that.
Hi, Renee. Yeah, definitely. I think we've stressed all along with, distance learning, how it's been applied this year is that we indicated that, our goal was to get everybody, to keep everybody back in school and safe. But whether it's through an IEP process or Section 504 process, we can address distance learning through those team process, through that process that you have in place. So the answer to your question is yes, but it's on a case by case and individual basis, as you said, based on the student's needs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, next we have Vincent. You can state your name and address for the record and unmute your microphone.
Actually, this is Dina, his wife. I'm just
That's okay.
First, I want to say thank you so much for your very hard decision that you made. It's really brought me to tears, and I am truly thankful that my child and the rest of the children can, safely and effectively be educated optimally and laugh and giggle and smile again. And, my biggest thing was the mental health of our children. And so I thank you for making this very difficult decision, because it is difficult, and, masking is an option. And I know that you are all going to do your best to make sure that these children, are staying safe and sanitizing their hands as much as possible during the day. And that really does make a difference. The question that I do have is, have you thought about putting a filtration system into the school systems and, going further, looking at that, to make it more effective for the children and safe?
Yeah. So can I answer that? So we did have a company come in, Creative Environment, and we went through all of our spaces. We have different systems that are still being installed in some of our buildings, but in the meantime, we have HEPA filters. We have these air scrubbers. They look like snails that you'll see in some of the larger settings. So, and I think our district was one of the first, when it first came, the importance of air quality. I mean, our buildings are old, right? Like there's no and if or buts. You go in our buildings, they're old. Some places just, they're from the 60s. We have sections in the 40s, but I think we've done a good job making sure that we have air quality. I mean, we found out we had sections of our schools that didn't have any ventilation when we did this study. So yes, air quality is important. And we've seen that, and we'll continue to monitor that and improve. I mean, I wish we had the bond that would have helped out a lot of different areas, but the fact is that I don't believe we've let our guard down when it comes to air quality. In fact, they've even said just opening a window a crack gives like 4 exchanges in a classroom. So we know. I go into classrooms sometimes, and we have, even though it's cold, teachers still have the windows open a little bit. So air quality is paramount as we move forward and continue to move forward. And I don't think you're going to see us laxing in that area. If anything, we're going to continue to improve that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, Kelly, you're up next.
Hi, Kelly Aronakis, President of the Coventry Teachers Alliance. Kathy, just a quick question. You had mentioned in your comments that obviously special education students that have severe needs and are at risk would be accommodated for, but you also said teachers. So I would assume that the bulk of the teachers that have not reached out to me are comfortable with the choice. But I have had teachers that have cancer currently, have had cancer and undergone treatment, teachers with bone marrow transplants, teachers with lung disease that are very concerned. They'll be in a closed classroom with a large amount of children, many of whom will unmask. You did say that you would do things to protect those teachers. Can I ask what they are so I can report back? Because obviously, if you're in one of those positions, you're very concerned.
Want me to answer that, Kathy?
Yes, please.
So, I mean, Ms. Aronakis, that would be, again, through someone that has a health condition through a 504 that we've done before. So depending, and again, it would be individualized based on the person's needs.
But an accommodation the district is no longer making is DL. Are you saying that you will make an accommodation?
No, I'm not saying that we will make DL. But I'm not, that it's up to that team that would meet and discuss it. So I think again, we would look and see what we can do to accommodate, and we would bring in, if we need to bring in medical experts or something like that, which we've done in the past, we'll do that. So, but we will definitely, on a case-by-case basis, like we handle situations now. We have many teachers that have required air conditioning, several teachers since I've been here, and that's been through a 504 process. So just like we will do with students.
I appreciate that very much. I'm just saying that the question that I have before me by probably about a dozen staff is I'm currently undergoing chemotherapy. I cannot be in closed places with unmasked people. I don't know what to tell that person, but you are saying that you're going to, protect them. I just don't know what that answer is.
I can't give you the answer because I don't have a crystal ball in terms of what their actual needs are based on their, but the process is they would request a 504 meeting, where we develop a medical plan like we've done before. So I can't tell you exactly what that would be for that individual because there's so many different variables. But I mean, I think the takeaway would be that they should reach out to their building administrator and request a meeting, and we'll address it. I guess I silenced her.
Well, I think she might be frozen maybe, but
no, I heard the answer. It
Oh.
just doesn't give me the answer for people, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mrs. Aronakis. Who's next, Mr. Murphy?
Okay, next is Bethany. You can see your name and address for the record.
Yes, hi, my name is Bethany Chatterley. My address is 1763 Victory Highway, Coventry, Rhode Island. And my question is related to the personal protective equipment mask policy that is currently out on the Coventry website. It lists masking as a mandate for teachers, staff, and students, along with disciplinary action for non-compliance. So I was curious what will happen with that policy now that parents have a choice on masking.
So part of my presentation, Ms. Chatterley, and I'm not sure if you saw it, was about going back and revising. I believe that's an administrative directive that's on our website under the COVID-19. So that's what I mentioned. There's several that we have to go back and modify and because of the change. So that I assume that language will be changed because of what, the situation we're in now. I mean, I don't assume, I know it will be changed, but I haven't done that yet.
Okay, thank you. And then just
it will be in place before March 7th. We have next week and the following week. And typically what I've done is, even though it's administrative directive, I've worked with the policy subcommittee to give input to that because they've been very, very supportive. And so I'll try to pull something together and have their input in that also.
Okay, thank you for that. I did join a little late, so I did not hear your presentation. I do apologize. And then just one final question would be, with masking being a parental choice going forward, are there any other new mitigation strategies that you will be implementing or mandating?
Not that I can say right now. I mean, one of the things we did say in the presentation, Ms. Chatterley, was we still need to see how the Department of Health is going to handle all these other scenarios that were in our playbook. And we won't know that. We're hoping we'd know that tomorrow, but I just received, excuse me, I received an email tonight that said they won't address that until we come back from vacation. So, that means, how do we handle close contacts? How do we handle someone that is positive and they need to isolate 5 days, but then they need to come back? They can come back after 5 days. Right now, it says you have to wear a mask for 5 days. So we don't know how any of those are going to be handled. So, but as soon as we get that information, I also said I'm having a meeting with our school nurse teachers when we come back, so we can update our guidance in that section where you quoted the administrative directive. We'll make sure it's for everybody. We'll send it out to all of our families and our staff too. So we have a lot of work to do next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Chatterley. All right.
Up next is Kathy. If you could unmute your microphone and state your name and address to the record.
Hi, Kathy Barvin, 60 Rebecca Street, Coventry, Rhode Island.
Question.
Okay, do you have a comment or a question?
I do. My questions go towards a couple of things that have already been talked about, such as the staff, the children that are immunocompromised. Do you have other situations going on at home that not everyone talks about? I feel that the point of going back to school was so that everyone could go back to school. And by lifting this without putting other things in place can be potentially dangerous. Why can't we wait till the filtration system is in place? Why can't we figure out why, for instance, the elementary children, I've seen pictures of they're sitting very close together. The teachers that are concerned, I myself, I am a nurse. I wear an N95 every single day I work. And it's hard, but I'm trying to protect myself and my family. And I get it. I want to see people's faces. I want to be with everyone. And I want things to be normal, but I also want to keep it safe, and I want to keep my kids in school. And I don't feel comfortable sending them if they're next to another child that's potentially not vaccinated, that they could get it from, even though if they're wearing a mask, I bring it home to myself and other family members that live in my home that are immunocompromised. The filtration is not in place. They are
So
not.
can I just say the filtration is in place?
But not to the levels you said yourself, that they're not 100%.
No. What I said was that we were one of the first districts. We had a company come in and check all of our spaces. So
But the windows have to be open.
No. No, they don't have to be open, but all I said was over time, they've identified that even just opening windows, because not everybody has done what we've done. Probably less than 10 school districts in the state had somebody come in and assess all of their spaces. What I said is we also have HEPA filters, portable filters. We have what are called air scrubbers. And so the spaces that I was talking about where the work's being done, where these large air exchange systems are being installed on the roof, we've put these air scrubbers and HEPA filters in there. So we don't have students in a space, and we shouldn't have them in a space. We identified some classrooms in a school that did not have ventilation, and we didn't utilize those classrooms till we were able to take care of that. So I just don't want
changed in those areas.
So I'm comfortable that the ventilation systems we have and the mitigation that we've put in place is effective right now. But we are continuing to improve that. Instead of having a HEPA filter on the floor, air scrubber, we're going to have large units in a couple of our schools that are being installed. And again, we're waiting just for parts. You know, it's been unfortunate, but there's been delays in getting some of this equipment because of other, supply chain issues and things like that. So, but we do have systems in place in our schools.
But also the concern that you don't have the protection, I guess you could say guidelines for those who need it. Right now, they're kind of up in the air because we're not sure what we're going to do. Why not figure that out and then move forward?
Because this isn't going into place till March 7th. So we have next week, the following week. We don't even have the guidance from the Department of Health. They haven't given us the guidance. So we're not sitting back. We need to wait to see. And also we had conversations with the Department of Health and Dr. McDonald that talked about all grade levels, right? It wasn't just targeting. So I'm not a scientist, and I'm kind of glad I'm not a scientist. So I rely on these key individuals to give us the information, but if there's specific questions, like I'm not going to get into specifics around family members of things, but we've always been able to work with our families and try to address those situations, concerns. So we do that on an individual basis, and I'm sure we can do that with you also.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Barbon. Who's next, Mr. Murphy?
Okay, up next is Kim. If you could state your name and address, unmute your microphone. Your microphone is muted.
I think she put her hand down, so maybe that was a mistake, Mr. Murphy.
Okay. And let's try going back to Charlie one more time. Charlie, it's your turn to speak. This one may have been a mistake as well.
Yes, it looks like that. All right. Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for your help. It looks like we have another one, Jim.
Yes. Jim, you're up next.
Everybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Great. How's everybody doing this evening? I'm sure this is a very difficult and hot buttoned subject. So thank you for giving everybody the opportunity to speak. My question is, well, I have one question, maybe a statement, but the question is, what about like larger assemblies such as, because my son's in drama. So what's going to happen with those as far as like even the parents coming in? Are we going to be, do we have the choice at that point to wear masks or not wear masks for those types of, larger events?
Yeah, Jim, there's choice throughout this, right? So okay. I had said that I just, 2.5 years been navigating this, and then last Tuesday I got COVID. It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I plan on, like I, and this is just my own personal opinion. I don't want to go through this. I know people that have gotten it twice, one individual 3 times, and so I can tell you myself, I want, until we get into the spring, I think I'm going to wear a mask. So if we go to events and things like that, assemblies, students are going to be, can wear masks, parents can wear masks. We want to make sure we set up a system where it's okay to do it, to wear masks, not a wear mask. We want to make sure that it's accepted either way in our school. So that's a good question. But I mean, again, we want to encourage people to do what they feel comfortable doing, right? We don't want it to be that people don't want to wear a mask because nobody's wearing a mask. I've seen the change in the state just recently where there's not a lot of, I go into a lot of stores, people aren't wearing masks. I also go in stores where it said, we would like you to continue to wear a mask. And, I think we're going to do the same thing here, is just encourage people to do what they're comfortable with. And, we may decide to do certain things. We may decide to hold off on major large assemblies for a while, till the weather gets a little warmer. I haven't had any conversations with our administrators about that, but this just happened last week. Again, we wanted to respond to it, and we have a lot of work ahead of us the next couple of weeks. So I appreciate your question, though.
Well, with that said, I'll say this, and that scares me a little that you just said that, putting off larger assemblies. I think the whole idea here, and I think most people, and look, I'm sympathetic and understand that some people are really concerned about their individual situations, as far as being immunocompromised or having cancer. Those are obvious things that you really got to be concerned about and have your heart put out for people. With that said, this has been 2 years, and it's not going away. This is not going away. So we need to learn to find a way to live with this on a day-to-day basis. And I appreciate the fact that we're moving in this direction. And as a community, you've decided to go without the mask. But what scares me is that we're still making all these concessions and mitigation techniques towards COVID. That's not going to go anywhere. It's an endemic. That's what we're being told. And to be perfectly honest, none of these things the mitigations that we've used are even proven that they worked. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I've gotten vaccinated. My whole family has. So it's not that I'm, not a political thing. It's just a matter of none of this stuff has really been proven one way or the other, whether or not it works. So the question is, why do we want to keep doing this if we're not sure that it works? Let's be honest. We've been wearing masks for how long? We've all been vaccinated for how long? Omicron comes and it just blows up. So where's the suggestion that the masks worked? People were still getting it, whether they were vax, boosted, masks, whatever. And again, I'm not trying to be political. I'm just trying to look at it commonsensically that, moving forward, even if there are spikes or whatever, it's not going anywhere. And I hate to have the kids continue to miss things. My oldest son was there 2 years ago when this all started and basically had no graduation. You guys did the best you could, but it was not very much of a graduation. All right. And I have a son graduating this year, and I don't know what that's going to mean either. So I'm hoping that we can push to getting back towards some level of normalcy, whatever that is, with the understanding that we have to accept that this is an endemic. It's not going anywhere, and we have to find a way to move forward. And I hope that you continue to look at it that way. I appreciate your perspective tonight, and I hope that we can, we're going to look at it as we move forward, but hopefully we don't continue to go backwards. We just move forward.
Thank you, Jim. Looks like we have someone else, Mr. Murphy.
This is one more. Michelle, you're up next. If you could state your name and address for the record, unmute your microphone.
Hi, yes, my name is Michelle Cohen, Coen, 2 Driftwood Drive. I'm actually not in favor or opposed to this for parent choice or whatnot. My only concern is that if I have my child continue to wear a mask in the middle school, what other kids might say or do. I know there are a lot of mean kids out there and bullying and whatnot. So I just want to make sure that the staff and administrators are aware to kind of keep an eye out for that so that it doesn't become an issue with people who are choosing to continue to wear those masks. So just wanted that to be addressed.
Mr. Levis, did you want to comment on that?
I agree. I think that's why one of my bullets in the slide, Michelle, was about being supportive, and we'll deal with it like we do any other situation, whether it's a bullying or, and I try to explain to people, this is my experience, is that, say at our middle school, we have 1,100 students, right? It's such a small percentage. Most of our students are very supportive, follow the rules, support their classmates. And so, sometimes we get focused on, and again, anybody picking on anybody is wrong. But I think that I have a lot of faith in the cultures that we have in our schools, and while we have some challenges, I feel that, we're going to do what we need to do. And if you hear, anybody hears of things, we ask them to share, directly with administration so we can deal with it. Because I can tell you, we deal with these situations every single day when they're brought to our attention. So that's a great point. We want to make sure that we're supportive for everybody, because I know adults feel pressure too, the same thing. So I know, I've been in stores since this has happened, and I've been the only one wearing a mask, and I get a little self-conscious, and I say, I really don't care, but it impacts all of us. So we'll definitely make sure we do what we need to do. And if people hear of things, like, please bring it to our attention.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cohen. Looks like we have another one, Mr. Murphy.
Yes. Grace, you're up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. I also wanted to just say how thankful I am that you're making the right decision with, going with choice. I'm sorry, I didn't say where I was from. I live in West Warwick, but my son attends the high school, so 37 Medieval Way. But I just agree with a lot of the people that have already stated that, the kids have just been so, like, their morale has been so low with the masking and all the cancellations and everything they've gone through for the past 2 years. So I think this is going in the right direction, although, you can't please everybody. I don't think we're ever going to get to COVID zero. So I think going in this direction is just the right thing to do. And, I just want to thank you again. And I know it was a hard decision for you, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate your support. Looks like we have another hand up.
Yes. Okay, this is Trailside Lodge, New Hampshire. You'll need to state your name and address for the record.
Well, it's not Trailside Lodge. I'm a resident of Coventry. I just want to say I'm in 100% support of, pure choice. We're not going to see this go away. People just have to realize it's not going anywhere. The vaccines have been proven not to work. Masks have been proven not to work. And I think if we just, like the last people have said, we keep up with trying to be safe, keep somewhat of a clean environment, then we can keep going further. And I just, again, want to say 100%. It's pretty emotional seeing, our beautiful kids not being able to smile and stuff like that. So again, 100% support. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
It doesn't look like we have any more hands.
All right. Then I think we can move on. Were there any final comments from the committee on this issue? I think we're good to go. All right. So we'll go back to agenda item number 6, which is the FY23 budget workshop discussion and the FY23 operations budget and capital improvement plans. So Mr. Levis, did you want to start this?
Sorry. Yeah, my computer just shut down quickly, so I don't know if that was me or everybody else. But so I know, and I apologize, I wasn't here last week. I know every week we've been having these budget workshops, bringing new information forward. Tonight, we're going to eventually ask the committee to put forward a budget we need to submit to the town. We still have a lot more work to do. We still have a lot more around staffing. We have, we're still one of the things we've talked about is we haven't purchased, we got approval to purchase vans. We know that'll offset our transportation expenditures next year, but we don't have the cash to do that right now. Hopefully, we'll work out this cash flow due to issue with the town, and we can get some cash so we could actually, purchase those vans. So there's a lot of still moving parts with that. So I know we submitted some documents to you. We've updated some of the documents. We're looking for I think it's a 3.93% increase. And we've kept the capital, the maintenance requirement separate. So you'll see later on when we do a motion, we continue, like we've always done, we continue to revise. We know that we will look at staffing based on enrollment, and we'll obviously make adjustments as we go forward. But we felt that this is a fair number for us, the 3.93. Anything that we do moving forward, we're going to have to work within that. We'll bring that back. Obviously, we'll continue with these discussions with the school committee. I know our people have been working really hard, again, not only on this budget, but also, trying to work out some issues with the town. And I want to thank all of our finance people. Mr. Sands has been working hard with Mr. DeVerner, with all of our principals, department heads. So, but I'm if we can stick, I guess, to the operations budget right now. Any questions? I have Mr. DeVerner, Mr. Sands here, Mr. Cowart, and any questions about what we're trying to do moving forward. I know we've had conversations with, especially around the Capitol. It was disheartening the other day for me personally when I saw the governor talk about the next $200 million. Several districts that I know that have taken advantage, Smithfield and East Providence, are already moving back into their stage 1, stage 2 to do different renovation. So, we've really got to figure out this whole capital issue with us moving forward. So anyways, and then we can talk about the capital list that we did submit a priority list. It may be confusing. I worked with Mr. Hill, and these are 5, I think there's 5 projects that we really believe we need to accomplish this year. I think it's a total of 1.4 million. But we did do a comprehensive list that's over, like, the first year's 3 million. But we recognized the fact that how this impacts our impact fees. Before, we would just send over, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, even though we didn't get any. And then to come to find out that would impact the impact fees that were based on our needs. So anyways, I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Mr. Levis. So, Mr. Pearson, do you have any questions about the operating budget and perhaps the capital? Because I'm not sure we're going to have a special, I think this is a combined question session, correct, Mr. Levis? Yeah.
Yeah, the motions are separate later on.
Right. Mr. Pearson?
Not too many questions on the capital budget. Thank you for providing an updated capital list. And a prioritized capital list. I think that will help us have conversations with the council moving forward. I guess I will just say that it's imperative that the maintenance requirement is fully funded this year. And if it's not, then that will be a significant issue, especially looking at our prioritized list, especially looking at the top item on the prioritized list, which is the well issue at Western Coventry Elementary. So thank you for that. I understand that. I'm glad we're continuing to put forward that updated information, and the council has said they will support our maintenance requirements, so now we have to hold them to that commitment. Operations budget. So in a previous budget workshop, you had presented us with a number of requested staff positions, but you said you were working on those because you needed to build or define the justification for each of those positions. Are those positions included in this draft budget that you've presented to us?
No, they're not in the budget, and that's why if we have to include, we're gonna have to find a way to include it in that 3.93%. There's still a lot of variables with staffing. We're still looking at like course requests at the high school, looking at enrollment in all of our other classes, with the elementary school and the middle school. We're also looking at terms of, how we're using fund balance, right? So we, or our ARP funds, we saw that in the past, we used that to put on a significant number of positions. We pulled them out and put them in the budget. So there's still a lot of maneuvering that we need to have, but we felt in terms of the number we're asking for that, we can make this work. Mr. Sands may talk about it later on, but one of the things I think is significant, we're not sure how it'll impact us next year, but we're finally in the positive when it comes to Sodexo and our food service. Remember, it's cost us every year several $100,000, and the hard work of Mr. Sands and his staff and Kristen Morello and Paula Patton for Sodexo, that we're actually in January, a couple $100,000, I think, to the good. So if that continues, we may have, that may impact our revenue next year, but there's a lot of variables that come into play, like free and reduced lunch. So you'll see in our budget, we're still projecting we're going to have to use a couple $100,000 fund balance. So I guess my long-winded way of saying there's so many moving parts still that we're not going to come back to you and say we have to do more. I'm hoping that we can come back, and even if we add positions, we can even reduce the budget because of so many different variables that we're still looking at. Like I said, just the vans alone, we think conservatively could save us, several $100,000, but we're not able to do that yet. So I don't want to talk in circles.
That will be very interesting. Again, the number put, I think it was $1 million in new positions. So if we're finding savings elsewhere, that can, in other words, we won't have to ask for more money. We can work within that 3.93%. That's interesting. So looking forward to that. And even if we don't need the new positions, I'm looking forward to any savings we can find to stay even, as you said, possibly even reduce what we're asking for. So here's a little sticky one. I had made a statement during a policy subcommittee meeting a couple months ago, and I'm sticking by it. Here's my question. How much money in the budget is allocated toward library and media center materials?
Mr. Pearson, I do not have that answer for you, but I will be glad to get that for you.
I was told at the time I asked the question that the number was 0, and my support on for this budget, that was one of my non-negotiables, that we must fund materials for our library media centers. I don't believe they can survive I know there was a big book drive at Hopkins Hill and it was very successful, but I don't believe our library media centers can survive with no funds for new materials moving forward. It does, especially since they're supposed to be supporting the curriculum in some areas as well. It doesn't make any sense to not give them any resources.
Yeah, we'll make sure we address that. I was at that policy subcommittee meeting too.
Yes, you were, and I said I would do it, and I'm doing it. So if we can get back to that, that'd be great. I don't have any questions, but I'll reserve that. If the conversation brings up some other points, I may have a question, but that's all I have for comments at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Mrs. Colonian.
I agree with Mr. Pearson that we need to, if there's nothing in the budget, we need to fund library and media, because that's basically, I mean, kids need that. We had that big presentation and I thought it was wonderful. And I firmly agree. So I agree with him there. Other than that, I have no other questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Florio.
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't have any questions either, but Mr. Pearson's question about the media, books, et cetera, can those be justified with APRA or ESSER funds?
Yeah, I believe we could. I mean, we could. I think Mr. Pearson's point, I don't want to speak for him, but is that we have to find ways of sustainability, right?
Right.
The culture, and again, I don't want to not pointing the finger at anybody, but it's kind of like we just accept this. We've talked about our facilities. We've had people that have just kept it going, and then we step back and say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have, right?
Right.
So we want to make sure that we do the same, but like we did, and I appreciate, I wasn't here to thank you for supporting the curriculum work with the presentation that was done with Amy and Don and Harold's support, and but we could do the same thing because they are crucial to the curriculum. I've spent a lot of time with them recently. They're an incredible resource, and so I'm sure we can do that. We using those funds, but I think our goal should be to try to see how can we support these programs on an ongoing basis.
Right.
And but to answer your question, yes, we definitely can, because it's about high quality materials, and
Right.
We can definitely do that.
Great, thank you. Thank you again for all the hard work. The things we did receive in our packet were really nicely put together. I agree the priority list on the capital is very helpful. And, I went through the budget lines and realized that many items were in fact the original budgeted amounts, were slashed, so that there was some savings all the way throughout the budget. So I appreciate that hard work, and I look forward to, again, it's all preliminary, and I think that's what we have to realize, that, the 3.9 is what we're asking for, and there's certainly some room to work within that figure. If things change, things can be, priorities change and things come in less than what you think and maybe predicted. So, but I don't think 3.9 is not a reasonable number. So I appreciate all the work, believe me. Did you have any other comments, Mr. Levis? I don't know.
I want to thank everybody. I mean, I know, I think, we need to remember that Mr. Sands has excellent staff working with him, but didn't have any other support for so long, and I'm glad that we have, Mr. DeVerna here, but we're still trying to, we're still struggling with some of the KeyNet polling reports, and it's frustrating. I was extremely frustrated today talking to Mr. Sands about it, not at Mr. Sands, but it's like, if people ask for information, we should be able to get it, especially on where we are today with technology, and we're struggling, and it's frustrating,
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm a people pleaser, but if somebody wants something, I want, that makes sense. I want to be able to get it to them, and we're struggling with some things. But I just want to thank the work that all of our administrators and our teachers, they were a big part of all the curriculum materials. I've had conversation with many people, and just like our librarians, we need to find a way to stop saying, well, we just can't, and we'd like to, but we can't. We've got to find a way. And the last thing I'll say is about going through the line items. There's been a lot of work, people going through line items and looking at year after year. And so what this year, a lot of work that was driven again by Mr. Sands and Mr. Coward and Ms. Anzalone, they were looking, and Mr. DeVerna, looking at line items and seeing that maybe we just budgeted something like 40,000 and 40,000. And we looked at 6,000. So, we were able to drill down. Mr. DeVerna was able to go back and historically. So you're going to see accounts. It doesn't mean we're not giving people what they need. It means money was there and we just weren't spending it, and again, there was a lot of effort, but where we came from 4 years ago and what Ms. Mangiarelli had done in terms of getting us to where we are today. And then Mr. Sands picking that up. So there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. I know there's been a lot of criticism of finance lately, but I just want to thank them. We still have a lot of work to do. We're not saying, and I want anybody listening, we're not saying that that 3.93, it may be what we're asking for, but we work every day. Budgeting is a daily process. It's not you do it, then you submit it, and then it's every single day looking at line items and so I just want to thank everybody that's been doing incredible work. Very appreciative.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you for all of your efforts to the team. Really very much appreciated. And I know you still have a lot of work yet to do. So good luck with that. I don't see any hands up. I will ask the public if they'd like to ask any questions about this particular agenda item. Please feel free to raise your hand and Mr. Murphy will bring you in to the meeting.
Doesn't look like there's any hands.
Nope. Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy. So we can move on to our next agenda item, which is number 8, which we are going to table. And so is there a motion to table this particular agenda item?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to table the non-renewable of certified personnel discussion and vote.
I second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your
Aye.
hand. So chair votes aye. That's a motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the actual vote for the FY3 budget. It says discussion. I'm not sure if we have much more to discuss on that. So are we ready to move on this?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 operating budget in the amount of $76,676,994 with $50,552,151 coming from local appropriations and requesting from the town of Coventry to Rhode Island General Law 16-7-3 of the maintenance requirement in the amount of $1,300,310.
I second the motion.
Any further questions or discussion from the committee? Seeing none, how about the public? Are there any questions or comments?
No comment.
Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Murphy. All in favor? Aye, raise your hand. Looks like we have 4 ayes and 4 raised hands, so motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on to agenda item number 10, which is the FY23 Capital Improvement Plan discussion and vote. And again, I don't know if we have anything to discuss on that. I don't know, Mr. Levis, did you want to make any comments to that? We already talked about it.
No, I didn't want to presume that you just wanted to vote on it, so we put discussion.
Right.
But this is the prioritized list
Right.
that Mr. Pearson had referenced. And just to note that if we were to receive this, this would cover the capital. So the capital request that was in the previous motion, this would cover that. I'm sorry, the maintenance requirement. This would cover the maintenance requirement. So,
Any questions from the committee? Are we ready, or are we ready to motion? Mr. Pearson, did you have anything?
I see a couple council members in attendance, and I would encourage them to reach out to Mr. Levis if they have questions about our capital budget.
Okay, thank you.
And I would hope that they would support this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Anything, Mrs. Colonian? You're good? Okay,
I'm
Mr.
good.
Flory, thank you. Mr. Florio?
All set, Madam Chair.
All right, then I guess we're ready for motion. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 capital improvement plan to include projects in the amount of $1,426,000 for the fiscal year 2023 as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, anything from the public?
Doesn't look like there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
But it looks like we have 4 ayes, no nays, motion carries 4-0. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to agenda item number 11, the February 28th, 2022 joint legislation meeting discussion. Mr. Levis, did you want to start this?
yeah, I don't know. And again, I didn't, full disclosure, I didn't go back and watch last week's school committee meeting. I figured, I got enough updates from everybody. So, but I don't know where you left off with the conversation. Mr. Coward had the conversation about the questions. I know in the past we've, I've asked people to submit questions to me. I just want to make it, again, it's not about me, but I feel like it just has to be, we want this to be purposeful and beneficial, right? I don't want it, I don't believe, none of us have a time to go and waste and, so I'm hoping that, there's some things that, ideas, concepts, instead of throwing 100 things at them, sometimes we've had an agenda with them that's been ridiculously long, and I don't know how effective it is after you're sitting for 3 hours. But, I don't know what the pleasure of the committee is in terms of what the priorities are. I know,
Oh, you're still struggling, Mr. Levis.
So anyways, that's all. I just want to put it on here, and if we want to, have a conversation, I can take some notes if people would be willing to send me questions, and then I can share the questions with the committee. However, make sure it's not a rolling quorum, but whatever your pleasure is. But I wanted to be part of this because I wasn't here last week, so I apologize for that. But
Yeah, we didn't really discuss anything amongst ourselves, quite honestly.
Okay.
So I'll ask Mr. Pearson to start. Do you have anything prepared, or do you want to just come up with something later, or?
Maybe I'll send over a note. I don't have anything top of mind, and I haven't really prepared too much. I think what was interesting, and maybe all of us should take a look at and see if there's something we can glean from this, was the I think it's RIPEC put out a report today, and it was interesting, and it's something that I don't think I've talked about during school committee, or maybe I have. I talked about it to a few people and a few times, so I don't know. Forgive me if I don't remember who the audience was when I mentioned it, but when you look at Rhode Island compared to other states like Massachusetts, we always compare to Massachusetts. We've even changed some of our legislation to model Massachusetts in the hopes that we can improve our education system. One of the things we didn't do, we have our funding formula, but we really didn't take a look at Massachusetts' funding, or they did and they said, oh, we can't do that, and just ignored it. I don't know. But one of the things about Massachusetts versus Rhode Island is the funding is upside down, meaning in Massachusetts, there's the proportion of funding that goes to schools compared to what comes from local districts is like opposite percentage wise as it is in Rhode Island. Rhode Island relies very heavily on local tax bases to fund education. And as we can see, the problems that causes with the, it's just a drain on our local resources, where Massachusetts has flipped that, and it has a greater percentage coming from the state versus putting the burden on the local tax base. And that was it's something I had mentioned, I think, over the summer to a couple people or to a couple groups, just something I had stumbled upon. And now to see this RIPEC report, I think it's RIPEC, this report come out today, they essentially said the same thing, that Rhode Island needs to find a way to kind of shift its education spending so to lessen the burden on the local tax base, and more money comes from the state and less money from local municipalities. Very interesting. I don't know if we can work that into a topic for the legislators. I'm not even sure how they can accomplish that, but I think it's something that they should start thinking about and finding ways that they can make something like that happen. It would make our all-day referendums much less contentious if the impact is not so great with the amount of education funding that has to come from the local source. So just a thought. I know that means our state taxes would go up, but that also means the burden is more greatly shared across everyone across the state versus someone who, like me, who owns a home, and I watch my tax bill go up hundreds of dollars every year. Other than that, I mean, I've got some normal gripes about, ethics laws and Board of Elections laws, but I don't think that's appropriate for the legislators meeting. So I'll take that offline with my rep and senator. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Mrs. Colonian?
It's funny that you should say that, Mr. Pearson, because I actually had a conversation with my state rep this weekend, my husband and I both, and it was about that exact same thing and how it could be done, and my husband's got all these elaborate plans and, so, but it can be done. It's just, we just need enough people to push for it. I think it can be done because right now we pay a pittance of income tax compared to Massachusetts or Connecticut. And like even someone that lives in Rhode Island and works in Massachusetts, they end up paying all their tax to Massachusetts and nothing to Rhode Island, and so I honestly think we just need to get more people on board and, inundate our state reps with this and maybe something will happen. But I agree with you totally. I think that's a huge thing. That's something we should bring up in the legislators meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Colonian. Mr. Florio?
Well, you beat me on the right pack. Where are we in terms of the funding formula, Mr. Levis? Did they reduce our funding this year or is it increased?
It got
Yeah, but it didn't have a lot to do. I don't think the funding formula itself, it was more excuse me, how they some of the data they took into consideration because of population shifts in population. But I think along lines with, if I can speak without coughing to death, what Mr. Pearson was talking about, I recently spent some time, Mr. Anderson, the attorney for the school department, one of his best friends is the assistant secretary of education in Massachusetts. And his sole job is the funding formula. Like that's $6 billion of the $7 billion of local aid is funding formula in Massachusetts. And one thing that's interesting, we hear this all the time, maintenance of effort with state. In Massachusetts, what you get one year never goes below what you received the previous year. They said it only happened once, and that was in 2004 when the dot-com busted. And then they would do like a 20% across the board. And what's also interesting is the funding formula in Massachusetts, it's supposed to be about 41%, 59%, 41%, but because of what's going on with the pandemic, Massachusetts is actually giving approximately 45%. So, but again, I think, it's in terms of our revenues, and I'm not an expert in this. I did see the RIPEC document today, but I think a lot of it, though, is the revenues that Massachusetts brings in versus Rhode Island. So it's kind of tied together. But I think that's an excellent point, talking about the funding formula. And if we're going to model ourselves after Massachusetts, why not try to really adopt their funding formula? Because ours, we know, remember Ms. Mandrelli, somebody asked a question and she put the numbers in the funding formula, but you don't get the number that's derived is not what the state says you're getting. Like it just doesn't work. So, I know they're still reviewing the funding formula. I know there's a committee that's looking at it, but I don't know what that means. So.
And the other thing, Mr. Levis, was I remember in 2002 when I was very active in politics, and I asked the gubernatorial candidate that why do we depend on the property tax so much and the income tax so little? And the response was a bit confusing because the person is now a major office holder in the state of Rhode Island. But in 2002, he said, a lot of my constituents that are wealthy would be against that. So that's another good question to bring up. Why do we depend so much on the property tax and so little on the income tax? So, and that's essentially what the committee's saying, the same thing. I think those are the two questions that I would have for the legislature. And I think I think we all agree on the same two questions, Mr. Levis. But that's up to Madam Chair to decide. So, and you. So that's what I think is important to put forward to the legislators. And thanks for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Florio. I think we should probably discuss the fact that the meeting is on the 28th and the town council will have to post that meeting probably the Friday before at the latest. Is it Friday or Thursday? Or I'm not sure when they actually post.
Next week.
I'm sorry?
They'll do it next week.
Exactly. So I would imagine, I know I see Dr. Dixon on the line. So I'm sure she would like us to make a deadline so that whatever questions do come forward, that we give them to her with enough time that she can put them on the agenda.
I'll send something out based on this conversation, if the committee's okay. I'll send something out before the weekend. And you know, I think if we get like a Tuesday deadline and I can get
Yes,
it
that's what I was thinking.
to Mr. Marchand or Dr. Dixon, you know, by Tuesday evening, hopefully that'll suffice. So, because I know the legislators definitely want to have an agenda. They don't want to just show up, and I don't blame them. So.
Right. And so I would encourage all of our members to at least if you come up with something else that you'd like to put on that particular agenda, please reach out to Mr. Levis over the weekend and, give him a question or so. I did see the RIPEC report. It wasn't anything surprising to me because quite honestly, we've been talking about the tax burden on property owners forever, since I've been on school committee. There have been folks who have talked about this very issue. It never seems to go anywhere. It always kind of, we finally got a funding formula. Like when I first came on committee, we didn't even have one. We had that sort of circular urban ring kind of scenario. So we've made some progress statewide, but there's also another report. And I didn't read the RIPEC report carefully enough. I just didn't have time. But I do know there was also something in the journal this week as well, Linda Borg's article on several education organizations coming together with a plan to increase funding, change the way we fund education in Rhode Island. And I believe it's the two teacher unions. It was the Rhode Island Foundation. It was RIASC. Probably even the Superintendent's Association and the Principal Association. I'm not sure who there was a group that got together. And so there's a whole list of things that they are potentially going to put forward, either in a bill or, and I know that one of the issues is asking for more state support for the teacher pension. Because right now, most states around us, and for example, in Connecticut, I don't think the local districts even contribute to the pension for the teachers. It's all done on the state level. And so that's a perfect example. When I first heard that, I went, that's impossible. How could a state not get some money from the local districts toward paying pensions? And I know that the piece in Massachusetts as well is so much greater as opposed to what we are required to do on the local level. So there's a few. I'll try to contact you, Mr. Levis, with that report. I think it was in the Providence Journal. I do have it because it was embargoed. I did talk about it at a meeting with the RIASC executive board, and there might have been other people on the call, the chairs, but it was embargoed, I think, until yesterday. And so it may even be tied into the RIPEC report. I'm not 100% sure. So, tomorrow I'll try to get that report together and send it to you so you can see it. There may be, or maybe I'll send it to all of the school committee members so that you can take a look and see if any of those issues that they identified are something that you want to ask about. Or just from my point of view, I would want to ask them, would you support a bill that included all of these issues? And which ones would you have problems with on that? And which ones would you, be completely behind and be supportive? So I'll try to get that to you, Mr. Levis, over the weekend and to the committee as well, because I would like to see their stand on it. But that's it from me. Is there anyone in the audience attending that would like to ask any question about this particular thing?
Doesn't look like there's anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Then I think we can move forward to agenda item number 12, which is the Director of Finance report and FY22 budget update. So did you want to start this, Mr. Levis, or should I turn it right over to?
I think, you have the document. Again, there's a lot of work going on just to get the budget documents, but I think you have two documents, a narrative from Mr. Sands and also I think it's through, and Mr. DeVerne is here also too, because I know they were working on it collaboratively through January 31st, 2022. So, if Harold, you want to highlight anything, or if anybody has questions, I think.
No, I just want to thank Mr. DeVerne for putting the 22 report together. One of the things that we have been trying to do on an ongoing basis this year is to get reports out to the town as soon as they've been approved by the school committee. And the new format that Mr. DeVerne has come up with is very effective in being able to create a front page, and then and then we have the detail behind it so that you can follow it. So I really appreciate that. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is how well Sodexo is doing this year on food. But it is something, as Mr. Levis has stated earlier, it is something that it could be fleeting just this year, but I know they are working on continuing the SSO program or the Seamless Summer Option program to next year. So we could see a 2-year repeat of this, which would be wonderful for Coventry. But we don't know where that's going. And if you notice on the 22 report, you'll see that the fund balance contingency that we used for the lack of financial support from food services has now been taken off.
Right, I saw that. Yep.
And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? I'll start with Mr. Pearson. Anything?
Thank you for putting this together. I do like the format also. Very easy to understand and get a quick grasp of where we stand. I guess my question is related to the town's requirements. So the town had asked us to provide these monthly reports. I just want to ask, how has this been received? Are there additional requirements that the town has provided that we may need to make adjustments, or does this format seem to fulfill their needs for these monthly snapshots?
Based on the snapshots that they've given us from the town, both Mr. DeVerne and I feel that this is an adequate or a similar product that they're producing at this point. But at the same time, we are willing and able to change the format if it needs to be done.
Okay, that's the only question I have at this time. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mr. Pearson. Mrs. Kalunian, anything?
No, thank you. I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Florio.
Madam Chair, I'm supposed to give a report to the council in March. Is that the next date, March 10th?
I believe it's there. Well, the report that would have been delivered on the February 28th meeting.
Right.
Because it's a legislator meeting. Mrs. Dixon wanted still to have an update in February, but since the last meeting of the month is our traditional report night, she didn't want to lose that report. So it'll be their first meeting in March that the February report will be given. And then I believe Mrs. Kalunian will do the end of the month of March.
Okay.
So yes.
So, Mr. Levis,
Yeah, I'll work with you to write the report that you'll give.
Yes. And will Mr. Sands have a financial report for me to give to the council on
No,
that same evening?
we'll give it to the council because it wouldn't be fair to put you in a position, Dave, where they're going to ask you questions. And
Okay.
again, I think that's, not that maybe we can put that in, but I think, there's still, I have concerns as superintendent in terms of still the understanding who has oversight over the school department budget. And, we understand they have to approve it, but, I report, Mr. Sands, we report to you guys. And I just want to be clear about that. So.
Okay. Okay. So that's something I do not have to be concerned about. Correct?
That is correct, Mr. Floria.
Very good. I just want to lay out the groundwork so the Madam President of the council doesn't start asking me for information that I will not have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Florio. And my only comment about the FY22 is I'm looking forward to the audited results. Because, this is all kind of unaudited still. And so I think that has to be worked out somehow or other. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that resolution on the town and the school side so that we, have an audited budget, so to speak, for FY22.
Can I just speak to that a little bit? I think it falls into line with the where we're at now, with the budget and this agenda item. But I know there's a lot of work going behind the scenes and on both sides.
Right.
And I also want to thank, our people, but also Mr. Anderson's working hard. And I know there are people, on the town side, so that, we need to get to some resolution, especially so we can have the audit done in a timely manner. I know that's been a priority, but there's some things that are holding it up and, they're not on this side. There's definitely some understandings that need to take place and some agreements. And I believe though, hopefully next week we'll be able to resolve some of that. That's what I'm being told. And again, I want to thank the work on both sides. It isn't just here. There's a lot of work being done by Harold and Chris, but there's a lot of people working hard, behind the scenes, and hopefully we'll have some resolution to this next year, because that's a big part. And, to have these audits drag on. And again, I'm not pointing the finger, because there's been times where, they've asked us for something and then we thought we gave it to them, and then they've asked us later on for something else. And so we definitely need to get these things done, completed in a timely manner. It just helps the whole budget process. So. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you so much. And thank you very much, Mr. Sands and Mr. DeVerner and anybody else that, helps with this. I do appreciate the new budgeting format. I concur that it's easy to follow, and it really, is a nice way of presenting the data. So thank you again. Before we move on, are there any questions or comments from the attendees that are attending the meeting this evening?
There were no hands.
All right, thank you, Mr. Murphy. And the next agenda item, number 13, was a vote or discussion on the school calendar. So we're going to table that. So could someone make a motion to table this particular agenda item?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to table the 2022-2023 school calendar discussion and vote.
Second the motion.
Thank you both. All in favor? Aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Looks like all ayes, no nays. Motion carries 4-0. And if Mr. Levis still has enough voice left, the next item is the superintendent's report. So, Mr. Levis, if you'd like to start that.
Yeah, so I think we've addressed COVID-19 enough tonight, so I'm going to leave that. And just an update on the performance audit. So I know a survey went out to staff. I was supposed to have a meeting today with Mr. Pennington and Mr. Marchant. I spoke, the meeting didn't take place the way it was supposed to. I did have a brief conversation with Mr. Pennington. He and I are going to be meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock. He's going to give me some preview information about some of the themes, some of the best practices. But I think we have a good, and I want to thank our staff. I know there's always concerns with doing surveys, and we know these are tough times and challenging times, and but he said we've had a good response from the school department, and I believe the town side also. So I will be meeting with him tomorrow at 10 o'clock virtually, and I know we have a meeting next week, the steering committee, where he's supposed to give us a preview of some of their documents. And I think the reason to have that, the steering committee that we have put together, is so that if we think there are things that are, obviously we're hoping to find things that we're not aware of that we can improve on. I've been very supportive of Mr. Pennington through this process. I know we've said it didn't really go the way we wanted to initially, how it started, but I believe he's a very honorable individual and wants to, give us good information. And so I will, if there's information from tomorrow, I can include in my weekly update to the school committee. But, we do have a steering committee. I think it's next Tuesday, the 22nd.
No, Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Wednesday, yeah. Yep.
So, but, we want that information back to support the budget process. So we'll keep on giving updates. So we'll have more information next week. And that's it.
All right. Sounds good. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Levis? Mr. Pearson, anything? No, you're good? Okay, Mrs.
No
Colonian?
questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Colonian, you're all set. Mr. Florio, did you have anything for Mr. Levis?
No questions.
I don't have any questions either. Are there any attendees that would like to ask any questions about Mr. Levis's report?
No hands are up.
Seeing none, I guess we can go to citizens' comments. Are there any citizens that are attending that would like to comment on any particular item or just make a comment in general?
No hands are going up.
Nope, I think we gave everybody a chance previously, so I guess they don't have anything more to add. Moving on then to scheduling the next meeting. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to schedule the next meeting for March 10th, 2022 at 6 p.m.
I second the motion.
All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Looks
Aye.
like we have a motion carries 4-0. And we can have our adjournment motion. I have 7:58.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn at 7:48 p.m.
7:58.
Oh, 7:58. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Colonian. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We've got 4 ayes and no nays, so motion carries 4-0. All right, thank you all for your attendance. It was lovely seeing everybody, and we will meet again. Have a good rest of the evening. Again,
You
thank
too.
you for your participation.
You too, Madam Chair.